to our Pick Boss training, and I know that some of you have already been through this, but I really wanted to welcome the new people for sure. I wanted to see everyone's face, and there are some things that have changed for everybody, so we definitely wanted to update you all with what's changed. So those of you who are veterans, please bear with us, and those newbies, if you have any questions, as Kate said, just put them in the chat box and we'll try to answer them as we can. So some of this is a lot of words, so I'll try to summarize as I can. And just so you guys know, this is being recorded, and also we have the PDF. So all of this that's on here is on the PDF as well. If I skip something or it's just too much information. But when you are Pick Boss, you are the leader of the pick. So you do need to be the person that's in charge and knows, more than everybody else, So here we have some things to know the day before the pick, that you familiarize yourself with where you're going and all the special requirements. Kate does an incredible job, and now Dominique too, of sending out these very detailed coordination emails that do give you almost every single piece of information you might need, gate codes, dogs, weird GPS stuff. But it's very good for you to familiarize yourself beforehand, not just day of, make sure it's in your phone, because some of these places are in remote areas and sometimes the internet is a little bit weird there. So you just want to be prepared. Make sure that you get there ahead of time, hopefully before your rest of your crew, but at the very least 15 minutes before, and make sure that you know who the grower is. If you haven't met the grower before, you want to introduce yourself if they're home. You might want to call them upon arrival, depending on, Kate would probably have information on whether or not the grower is going to be present, but you definitely want to let them know that, hey, here we are. And, whatever they might have as a special request, maybe there are some trees they don't want you to pick, but you want to make sure that you understand where you're picking and, what they're expecting of you as well. And then after the glean, this is a brand new thing because this did come up, during the gleaning, we'll talk about what happens there, but after the glean, make absolutely sure that you pick up all the equipment and that you do not leave until the last volunteer leaves. So that makes sure that there's all the, stuff that people may have left there is taken away. And conversely, make sure that you let your volunteers know that, they need to wait until it's all finished before they just run into their cars. They would need to wait to hear from you that it's okay to go. We are now expanding our groups, and as some of you know, we started out last year with a very small quick pick crew, maybe three, 4 people. We're getting much higher, bigger numbers, 8, sometimes maybe even 10. So this is a little bit different than just the people that you kept picking with every week or every few weeks that you already knew and you didn't really say much. Now you do definitely need to make sure that everybody who is on your crew is familiar with what we're doing, who we are, and they may be new themselves. So I won't go through this entire speech here. You can take a look, but essentially what this is to get everyone, introducing themselves to each other, telling them, who Produce Good is, what we do, what we're doing today, what kind of fruit we're picking, maybe giving a little background on gleaning. You don't have to do all of this, but it's a really good idea to kind of get everyone on the same page. So that's why this is here. A little script if you want it. So take a look at it when you look at the PDF. But you who have done it for a while are, probably know, just as much as I do, I'm sure, about, what you want to say and how to do it. But make sure that if there are new people that everyone is included. And we do sometimes do this, kind of icebreaker, optional icebreaker, depending on, how big the group is, asking everybody, what their name is and what their favorite fruit is, or something fun like that. It just gets everything moving, and at least everyone knows each other's names. Okay, so fun fruit facts. And some of you know this, but I want to make sure that you all hear this. Citrus does not ripen after you pick it, so please do not ever pick green fruit if you can help it. Sometimes it's hard to tell because the green part of it might be in the shade, and you pick it and it's like, uh-oh, this is half green and half yellow. But overall, try to pick only fully formed, ripened fruit. For example, here we have a lemon, so it's fully yellow. There's no green on it. A little tiny bit of green on the top and bottom is okay, but absolutely make sure that it also is not, there's nothing soft or smushy, or there's holes or, you know, any kind of damage to it. And if there is, you can put it aside in a bag or a bucket. We call it the boo-boo bag. You know, and that can be distributed to the volunteers once the day is over, because it makes great juice, but you can't use that for the donated fruit. Okay, so some important things to remember. There's, you know, different kinds of citrus, and you will be almost exclusively doing citrus. Every so often we get to do avocados, very exciting, and those are a little bit different, and those need different clippers. So Kate and Dom will let you know if it's an avocado pick, and there may be a little bit different instructions. But overall, most citrus can be picked one of two ways. One is the pull and twist, which is what it sounds like. You're taking the fruit, you're just pulling it gently and twisting, and if it's ripe, it'll come right off in your hands. You can also use clippers. But if you are picking, this is a big note, if you're picking tangerines, clementines, or tangelos, those all must be clipped, because they are very fragile and they will tear if you use your hands or even the pick or pull. So just remember, those three types of citrus need clipping. Other important things to remember when you're on a property, some of the bigger ones have lots of sprinklers. Be really careful of those. Sometimes, you know, it's hard to see them. If you should happen to break a sprinkler, it's no big deal. Just make sure that you notify the owner, because the piece is very cheap to replace, or, you know, 10 to, I don't know, 50 cents each, but, you know, the water wasted is very expensive. So it's very important that you let, either if you're a volunteer or a pick boss, let the owner know. We have no ladders, they're not allowed. And if there are ladders on the property, please do not use them. No climbing trees, even though it's very, very tempting sometimes just to get that one piece of fruit. And we are all expecting you and your volunteers to abide by our code of conduct, which we'll cover in a minute. If you do tear or damage the fruit, as I said, that can get put aside and you guys can all take that home later. And then make sure that the volunteers don't leave before they finish their work. You know, just, they need to bring all their bags in and their fruit in, you know, to help load before they depart. So when we pick, we have certain kinds of tools, and different kinds of picks have different kinds of tools. And there's going to be a train coming in a second, so sorry. But you can read here the kinds of the typical tools that we use. Clippers, which are, you know, the small hand clippers. We have pull pickers, which you can see here are the tall extendable type of kind of a basket with a little cage. That's usually for fruit that's very high, or if you have older trees and they're hard to reach. Bags, it's a very simple method. We're putting the fruit in the bags. We also have a larger type of bag, which we'll show in a minute, a professional picker bag. It's a big blue bag. Those also can be used. When you, in your supply kit, you should also have first aid kit, gloves, a wagon if you need it for the pick, a scale, again, that's optional, and ice pack, which is separate from the first aid kits. There's a video that you were given before, but I'm not going to play it because it's so hard on Zoom to see it, but it does have some special little, it just shows you how to use some of the tools. It's called Pick Boss Pro Tips. Now here's some safety tips that, you know, have come up recently, so we want to make sure we cover this. So in addition to those tools, we definitely want to make sure that this is a very safe experience. So if you do happen to use these blue picker bags, the big ones, you can see the picture there. Those are only to be worn kind of like a shoulder bag, like a purse or something. It is not worn around your neck because it will hurt you. They are very large and they can get very heavy. So this is the only way you should be carrying or using those bags. First aid kits. Every boss should have a first aid kit. If you do not have one, please let Kate know. They are located in our mobile van units where we have all of our supplies. And we also now just have ice packs, which are those instant kind that you can just hit and you can, you know, use it for anything. But please have that available with you at every pick when you are going. It's very important, especially in the summer months. We just want to make sure that everyone is fully supplied and ready for, you know, anything that should come up. collecting and distributing harvests. So once you've harvested this lovely fruit, you know, we have ways that we are estimating the fruit because we have been using bags up until this point, and we probably will continue to use the bags for some time. So we are estimating, you know, one bag is a full bag is approximately 25 pounds. But if you want to be exact, you can use a scale that you can take for, you can use, you know, on your picks. We have those provided for you in the, again, in our supply trucks. And you can then do your math. You know, you figure out how much a few of them weigh, make an average, and then you can times it by the amount of bags that you have. If you're when you load it into the transport vehicles, this also came up, which I'm sorry that we didn't mention this before, but if you are loading it into cars or closed vehicles, that's totally fine. But if it is a truck, if someone's driving it in a truck, the fruit must be fully covered. That is a county regulation. You cannot be driving around with uncovered fruit in San Diego County. So just remember that, please. If you do need a tarp ahead of time, please let us know. If you know there's a truck, we have tarps. We can supply those to you as well. And if you are delivering to an agency, a lot of you have been to the same agencies over and over again, so they have their usual protocols. But just remember that if possible, when we're delivering, you know, let's say 50 bags of fruit, if they have their own containers, please transfer the fruit into their containers so we can take our bags back. Sometimes that's not possible, but that's the ideal. And then just remember to contact the orchard lead with your totals and photos if you can. We love photos, and we try to post them as much as possible. Okay, now we want everyone to be safe, and we want everyone to have a really good time. So just briefly going over the safety precautions. We now have changed. Well, let me back up for a second. So as we know, California has now opened up. So our COVID protocols have changed a lot along with California's rules. So basically, we don't have any rules anymore. We do not need to do so. I mean, right here it just says respect protocols with regard to social distancing as required. That's really only in very specific cases if you're somewhere inside in a place that still requires, let's say, distancing or masks. But otherwise, our operations, we are very safe. We're outside. There's no need to be worried about any of that. Make sure that you're wearing the proper gear, closed-toed shoes, very, very important. People don't understand how uneven and rocky the ground can be. It's usually on a slope. It's pretty uneven terrain. So always wear closed-toed, sturdy shoes, no ladders. Make sure that you tell the pick boss, or if you're the pick boss, make sure that you are making sure that everybody's okay. And if there's an emergency, they'll come to you, but you also then can call 911 if there is a medical emergency. Make sure that you're trying to be as careful with the produce as possible. Make sure that you remember that we're at somebody's home usually, so be as respectful as possible. Make sure that you cleaned up after yourself and left the property as you found it. We are not gardeners. We don't have to clean up everything after that, but do not make a mess and leave the mess. Make sure that you're hydrated, you bring water, make sure you're just watching around, be aware of your surroundings. Sometimes there's branches, trees, wires, it's not always a real neat and tidy operation. So just be really aware, and especially as a pick boss, make sure that you are aware of your volunteers and what they're doing, and that they're okay. As far as the safe atmosphere, we want everyone to feel very safe and inclusive here. We want to make sure that there is not any kind of issue between volunteers. And if there are any concerns at all in terms of being respectful or discriminatory behavior, that needs to stop. You need to either, if you are the pick boss, you need to figure out how to de-escalate the situation or talk to the parties. If there's some problem, please call us. One of us will be ready to step right in, but make sure that you are aware of different people, their kind of boundaries, and make sure that the volunteers themselves are aware of each other, and that they're not, that they are just listening to each other, and if they have some boundary issues or if they have any concerns at all, please be respectful of that. So these feeding and safety protocols are now pretty much gone. I mean, we don't really have many things that we need you to do, and all of them are really listed in our regular protocols as well. I mean, we're not going to be getting into other people's cars unless they say it's okay, but it's not really a COVID thing. And then just make sure that all the fruit, this is more about the county regulations. The fruit needs to be free of stems and leaves at all times, and make sure that you don't use ladders and such. So this is actually kind of not that important. Again, if you are driving, just make sure that the agency that you're working with, if they have any kind of special requirements, if you have to go into a building and if they're still using some kind of COVID protocols, make sure that you're respectful of that. But normally I would say that's probably not going to happen. And also, only enter spaces that, it's okay to go in and that you've been invited to. And when you're, delivering to the food bank, depending on whoever it is, the pantry, sometimes you can just leave the harvest there. And again, Kate or Dom will know that specific agency's, protocols. Sometimes that happens where we're just leaving them there. And then just make sure that when you are doing the delivery, you do have the right address, you do have the right time and the location of where you're going, and make sure that you, double check with our staff on where you're going that day, and a contact at the location should you need it. And remember, we are, you are a representative of Produced Goods, so we are an approved agency. So there should be no issues at all with the agency itself. And if there are, please call us immediately. Okay, so equipment. You may or may not already have all of your equipment. If you're brand new, you may not. And I'm sure Kate will be in touch with you. But we basically have been using our vehicles, which we call our Fruit Loopers, our lovely Fruit Loopers, as our mobile units, storage units for all of the equipment. So you can just collect what you need from this area. It's on Saxony Road. If any of you are familiar with the Leech Tag Commons, it's on that property. When you drive in there, you would just say that you're with Produced Good at the security gate, and they'll let you in. It has all of the supplies listed here. We also have long sleeve t-shirts, although it's getting warmer, but they are really nice to have with prickly lemon and other citrus branches. Okay. And that is all for the presentation. So I'm going to guess in the chat there's some questions, or will let me just look at what they are. Oh, okay. Kate said something about familiarize yourself because I make mistakes. Oh, as everything is copied and pasted. You want to say anything about that, Kate? You're not here.
I was just commenting while you were talking, Nita, just kind of as you were doing it.
Oh, okay.
Telling people, I make mistakes sometimes. There's a lot of things that I'm copying and pasting. If you notice something, feel free, please. I appreciate you telling me that there's a mistake. So that was just something I wanted to share. And also, if people don't want to take on more volunteers, there's no pressure to do so. Just because things are opening up doesn't mean you need to take 10 volunteers. If you want to still just go out by yourself, or if you feel good with 7, we will totally honor that and respect that. So just also wanting to make sure that that was very clear. We're not expecting you to take on any more volunteers at all. But if you want to, we will gladly supply you with extra polls and things like that. And just reminding too, the fruit doesn't have to go to waste if there's nicks or it's rotten. Just take that home, give it to your volunteers, but we don't want to put that in there because it does spoil the other fruit. That was kind of it.